Welcome back to Learn Economia. In this video, we will be covering a very important topic in the arena of public economics, that is Wagner's hypothesis. From the very name of the theory suggests, Wagner's hypothesis was propounded by a German political economist, Adolf Wagner. And he has taken into consideration or he has used many of the empirical evidences by taking the data from many European countries and also Japan. He has collected data from USA, Britain, France, Germany, etc. In order to explain his analysis, or in order to explain his observations, which later came to be known as the Wagner's hypothesis. So the hypothesis actually argued that there exists a functional cause and effect relationship between the growth of an industrializing economy and the related growth of its public sector. And the observations of Wagner could be simply called as Wagner's law of increasing state activity. Okay. Let's state the hypothesis. Wagner has systematically observed the historical facts, as we have already discussed. He has collected data from diverse or various European nations and also from Japan, and then he had tried to formulate his hypothesis. He tried to explain the cause of growth of public expenditure in terms of various laws of increasing state activities. So he says that public expenditure increases as a result of the increasing state activities, and when an economy develops, there is a natural tendency for the economy to increase its expenditure on different kinds of state activities. So Wagner, as per Wagner, there exists an inherent tendency for activities of different layers of the government to increase both intensively and extensively. When I say different layers of the government, it consists. We know that there exist different layers, right? Central government, state government, local bodies, etc. So Wagner, what he has done is that he has presented his law by telling that the comprehensive comparisons of different countries and different times show that among progressive people with which we alone are concerned with an increase regularly takes place in the activity of both central and local governments. So the central and local governments, as per him, constantly they undertake new function, and that doesn't mean that when they go for new functions they are actually setting apart their old function. In this hypothesis, it means that whenever the government goes for new actions or new activities or new kinds of expenditure on different types of activity, it doesn't mean that the government is not spending upon the old activities for which it was spending upon. So for any efficient or effective government, or for any government to function more effectively or efficiently, it is very much important to manage both the new activities and old functions simultaneously. Now, Wagner's law of increasing state activities is considered to be universal truth in very recent years, as we could see that whenever a country develops or whenever a nation develops, a nation spends on various fields so as to promote the welfare or well-being of its people. So the economic growth of a country has always been accompanied by the increasing state activities, and hence in order to increase state activities, we know that we have to increase the public expenditure. So whenever there is an increase in state activities, that means that there is an increase in the public expenditure, or there is an increase in the expenditure incurred by the government. Now empirical evidence also indicates the same thing, but we could see that there have been many contradictions that the theory could face. For example, F.S. Nifty, he has made an empirical study of the expenditure trend of the public authorities of various countries of the world, and from his study has concluded that it's empirical evidence that Wagner's law was not only applicable to Germany but also to various governments which differ from each other. So that is the same thing which we could see, right? But at the same time, even though Nitti was supporting Wagner to an extent, we could see that there have been many other works which has criticized Wagner's work, which we will be discussing in the later sessions of this particular video. Okay. Now, Wagner's laws, we have already told, it's based on historical facts, and it is applicable to modern progressive governments only in which the state was interested in spending or expanding for public welfare. Okay, Wagner, he has observed that there is a persistent tendency towards an extensive and intensive increase in the functions of the state. As a result, it is very important to understand the difference between the intensive functions and extensive function. So here intensive functions means intensive increase in expenditure means there is an increase in the expansion of the traditional functions of the government on a large scale. That is, the traditional functions of the government would increase. That means that is the extensive expenditure. And now coming to the intensive expenditure. Now coming to the extensive increase means coverage of new welfare functions. Now it's very important to understand the continuous trend in the increase in the expenditure of the government. It's very important to understand what is the main reason that makes the government expenditure to increase. So Wagner actually here cited three reasons. First is expansion of the traditional function, secondly coverage of new functions, and third is expanding sphere of public. Let's discuss these in detail. First is the expansion of traditional functions. What are the traditional functions of the government? We know that the government undertakes different kinds of activity in order to increase the welfare of its public. So these includes defense, administration of justice, maintenance of law and order, etc. So these are considered to be some of the traditional functions of the government. So when the functions of the government expand to different spheres, when the traditional functions of the government expand to different spheres, that means that the government has to incur a lot of expenditure to finance its new activities, right? So the traditional functions of the government, for that it actually changes from time to time. That too is a matter of question. So when there is a war time, then the government has to incur a lot of expenditure on sophisticated weapons, then military, etc. So when it is there is a poverty time, then the government has to spend a lot in order to provide food to the people, etc. So it depends actually which kind of traditional function of the government should be given at the given importance for the timing. So it depends upon the condition of the state, or it depends upon the condition of the nation. So it is what determines the main traditional functions of the government. But altogether there have been certain functions which are very much common to any government, which are identified to be the traditional functions of the government, like administration of justice, maintenance of law, order, etc. Now, coming to the coverage of new functions, we have already told that even though the government is undertaking some traditional functions, it doesn't mean that the government is not taking its share with respect to new functions. Also, when the government is going for new function, it doesn't mean that the government is not at all looking at the traditional functions when it is going for new functions. So an effective and efficient government will simultaneously manage both the new and old functions, that is both the traditional functions and new functions together. This is very much important. Okay, now so it is for the welfare of the public itself that the government is going for new functions. These functions mainly cover different needs and wants of the people, like education, public health, housing, subsidized provision for food, agriculture inputs, or pension, etc. Now, having discussed both the old and new functions, it's very important to understand how the expanding sphere of public good is promoting or increasing expenditure of the government. We have to understand the meaning of public goods before going into this point. I think you might be aware of public goods, which is considered to be a good which has got the characteristic features of non-rivalry and non-excludability. So that means that if a person is consuming this public good, that doesn't mean that it reduces the amount available to the next person, or you cannot exclude a person from consuming this particular good. That is the non-excludability feature of public good. So public good altogether is has got the characteristic features of non-rivalability and non-excludability. So let's discuss some of the examples of the public goods, which include public parks, provision for education, health facilities, creation of economic overhead capital, etc. So government, especially in modern times, has been spending a lot, whether it is in the form, whether it is in America or it is in India, whether it is a developed country or whether it is a developing economy. So whatever be the kind of economy, the government has been expanding its sphere of activities by creating and incurring a lot of expenditure on public goods. Okay, now let's understand the different forces which operate on both the demand and supply side, which affect the public sector activity. First, we will cover the demand side factors, then we will look into the supply side factors. Okay, and we have to understand that the per capita income and wealth exerts a positive impact upon the demand as well as cost of the government activities. Coupled with this, the rate of growth of population and density also affect demand for public goods. And also while looking into the factors which are specifically dealt with the demand side of public expenditure activities, we could see the urbanization, industrialization, structure and composition of population, specialization of labor, centralization of administration, etc. Now going for the supply side factors, we could see changing scale of production of government activities, quality of production and intergovernmental grants. So from this we can understand that the public relationships Wagner sought to trace are very much complex, and he believed that the increased public expenditure was natural result of economic growth, and it continued pressure for social progress. Wagner he held that the income elasticity of government services is greater than unity, or the public expenditure will increase faster than the increase in the per capita income of the people. So let's discuss in detail the graphical presentation of Wagner's hypothesis. Here in this figure, we measure the real per capita output of public goods on the y-axis and real per capita income on the x-axis. We could see that with changing or with changes happening, there is a shift in the curve. That is PG is the curve which we will be dealing with, and this curve shifts from one area to another. Okay. Here it is also important to understand that time is a very important element here, and as per capita income increases due to economic development of society, real per capita output of public goods remains at the same proportion to the total economic activity. That is very important to understand. Now, Wagner's hypothesis actually provides a very suitable framework for explaining the economic factors as a most important determinant of any relatively expanding public sector during the industrialization process and resulting economic growth. Okay, the functional relationship Wagner sought to trace is, as we have already said, it is very complex, and he believed that the increased public expenditure is considered to be a natural result of economic growth and continued pressure for social progress. Now, having discussed Wagner's hypothesis, very important to understand that as every other theories, this theory or this law or this hypothesis too is not free from criticism. Especially, it was Alan T. Peacock and Jack Weissman who have criticized this theory based on several grounds, and the theory has been criticized by telling that it lacks interdisciplinary approach in its analytical framework, and it is based on the organic self-determined theory of the state, which is not the prevalent theory of the state of the most of the Western countries. This is what another point which have been pointed out by Peacock and Weissman, and they have also said that the theory ignores the influence of war and government spending, and also it stresses a long-term trend of the public economic activity which tend to overlook the significant time pattern of the progress of public expenditure growth. So this is all about the Wagner's hypothesis. Having discussed that, we will be meeting next time. We'll be meeting next time with a new video or a new topic. For that, please like, share and subscribe my channel. Thank you.